Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company introduction to Apollo Silver. This is a silver company with two projects. One, the Calico Silver Project in California, as well as an option on the Cinco de Mayo Project in Mexico. Some work plans at the Calico Project and the Cinco de Mayo Project, all about getting access to this historic asset that has had a lot of work on it and a impressive historical resource. We are chatting with Andy Bowering. Andy is the interim CEO and chairman of Apollo Silver. Company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol APGO, on the OTCQB under the symbol APGOF, and the Frankfurt Exchange 6ZF0. Andy, welcome back to the show. Let's get right into the company's projects. Starting with the Calico Silver Project in California. This also has a resource over 100 million ounces in the M&I category, plus about 51 million ounces in the inferred category. Andy, take us through some of the history of this Calico project, please.
Well, thanks, Corey. Calico was bought from Pan American Silver for 41 million cash in 2021. We bought it because we felt silver was going to have a pretty good increase in price. It was a project that had a great historic resource. It had some other low-hanging fruit, like a critical mineral called barite, and it was ready to upgrade the resource, take through economic study, and advance. And keep in mind that it's in San Bernardino County. So to your east, you have Equinox's Castle Mountain mine, and to your west, Rio Tinto's Borax mine. There's 99 operating mines in the county. They're mining friendly. It sits on private land. In fact, we pay fee simple taxes. So it's already been designated mining land. It's at the bottom of the Mojave Desert, so water's tight, but it's a great project. And if you're going to head into a big silver market, 170 million ounces of silver that sits at surface is a nice project to go to work on.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. And let's talk a little bit more about the geological setting. What looks interesting about this deposit is how predictable it is. It's thick, but just give us some insights as to the resource and the geology.
So it sits at surface. It's on the slope of a hill. It's a 100 gram, just over 100 grams of silver, but it's got some really nice, wide, high-grade structures of 25 and 30 meters of 500 grams sitting at surface. We've done the modeling work to look at it to see if it could be run at a 100-gram cutoff, higher grade, lower tonnage deposit if silver prices weren't to hold up, and that makes some sense. But effectively, this is a large, low-grade, easy processing, open pit mine that operates through a conventional carbon leach and a Merrill-Crowe finishing. Its recoveries are good, and it sits there at surface. There is a 13% barite credit. ASARCO in 1979 established about a 5 million ton barite resource there, but no work has been done on it in the modern day. We announced today that we're going to spend about $600,000 to do an 8,000 sample assay and met program to determine a compliant barite resource. And the reason we're doing that is because barite's a critical mineral, and you're starting to see a lot more of the fight between the Asian economies, the BRIC countries, and the Western world and the critical mineral complications. So last week, I think moly was put on the critical mineral list, and China has now banned exports of moly to the US. 95% of the US's barite consumption is imported from China. And while it's only $250 a ton, it's still on the critical list. That will give us some trading cards with the government for potential loan guarantees, grants. We're hoping to be able to use it to trade some water. There's water at Calico. We've drilled 3 wells on our property. and seems to be a good source of non-potable water there. But because the project sits in a adjudicated basin, we don't own the water rights. So potentially we might be able to trade some of the water rights that belong to an old shutdown marine base that's 5 miles to the south. We might be able to trade those because of the critical mineral nature of the barite. Hence, we're doing the barite program. If your listeners want to add a value to that, maybe silver equivalent, it would add about another 20 million ounces of silver equivalent. So, and the other thing, we didn't realize at the time it was going to happen, but when we did the last resource calculation, we pulled a pit of 70,000 inferred ounces of gold. There is a formation that's underneath the primary silver foundation, the pick handle, and this gold formation daylights to the south. We found grades as high as 200 grams a ton gold at surface. Very little work, pulled a pit of 70,000 ounces. So we're going to go back and do some work there and just see what's up about all this potential gold opportunity.
Okay, so further exploration that you can do. Just wondering though, Andy, since this is, as you even said, a bit of a lower grade asset with the resource that came out in 2023, when would you start to put some economics around this asset just to prove to the market that it can be economic?
So we did an internal study in 2023. Now, bear in mind, during the time that we bought this to about a year ago, the price of silver dropped from 28 to I think around $20 an ounce. Our resource sector got really difficult. The market cap of Apollo, after being at about 130 million market cap and raising $53 million at 75 cents, our market cap went down to sub 20 million. And we showed continuous leadership, buying more stock ourselves, supporting the company, never ran it out of cash, never had to do another financing, but to do an economic study. And so keep in mind that most of the resource here is measured and indicated. So it could go through a PFS if you had the geotech drilling and enough work done on the metallurgical processing. You could do a PFS. Likely an advanced PEA comes first, but economic study is kind of the valley of death of the Lassonde curve. And so sub 20 million market cap and thinking about doing an economic study, we just thought, you know what, we got to find something more exciting to do with this company first, get the market cap stronger, and then raise the money to do the economic study. All that being said, probably the second half of this year, we're going to do that economic study.
Well, I know you have found something else exciting for the company. We will get to the Cinco de Mayo project, but maybe one more quick question on Calico. When people hear California, they probably think, wow, mining, I don't know. But to your point, the Castle mine from Equinox is nearby. It's in a different part of California, as you already mentioned, near the desert, which has its own water challenges. But there's also a lot of infrastructure in place, and there's a lot of benefits to being on private land. So for those worried about California as a jurisdiction, maybe just speak to that concern.
Sure. So private land, we own it. It's already been designated as sole purpose for mining. We have all of the, not just the land over the deposits, but we have all the laydown land and the process land and enough land to build an operation. There is a highway, there's a paved highway that runs, I don't know, half a kilometer, not even, a few hundred meters or yards from the property. There is a major interstate highway that's within, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles. There's a rail line that runs along there. There's a lot of power. So all of the infrastructure and a town of 10 to 12,000 people that's 10 miles away. So everything that you would need to put a project like this into operation is there. The other thing that I'll say about California is that a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with backfill legislation in California. And simply that means if you dig a pit to mine something, when you're finished, you got to fill the pit back in. And we've already dealt with the county, and I'll speak to that in a second, but there is no requirement to fill in any pit here. This is a bump on the side of a hill, and it will be shaved off as it's processed, and then it'll be terraced. So backfill legislation does not apply. And then what I made comment about the county, this is not near federal waters. It's private land. So the only permitting we need is from the county of San Bernardino. We don't need state approval and we don't need federal approval for it. So it's a bit different than a lot of other places in the country and in the state.
Okay. Well, that is right now the underlying asset, I believe, of the company, but there is also this Cinco de Mayo asset, which just recently the company entered an option agreement from MAG Silver to acquire this project. The whole aspect here is that there was a lot of work done at Cinco de Mayo. It's a CRD type system, a historic large resource at a much higher grade than the Calico project, but you need to get access onto the project. Take us through the complex history of the Cinco de Mayo project, please.
The Cinco de Mayo project was identified or discovered by Dr. Peter McGaw, one of the world's authorities, or perhaps the world authority on CRD, carbonate replacement deposits. It was discovered in the early 90s. A lot of work was done. It was optioned to a company called MAG Silver in the early 2000s, and then they subsequently started drilling on it. MAG put 439 drill holes into the project, a lot of them on 250-meter centers. All but 12 drill holes had mineralization. In fact, Peter McGaw will tell you that this project is so big, it's important to the country of Mexico, not just the state of Chihuahua. It's massive. It's 155 million silver equivalent ounces at 385 grams right now. So that's, call it 140 grams silver, 2.8% lead, and 6.8% zinc on average. And I believe there's a small gold credit. It's an underground deposit. It starts about 300 meters below surface, stretches to about 700 meters below surface. It's ideal for the current narrative in Mexico. They're looking for underground mines that save water, that don't cause the surface destruction. And so it fits that narrative very well. In 2012, MAG drilled hole 431. They hit 61.3 meters of massive sulfide in a brand new discovery called Pegaso. And they were tossed off the property a few months later. And the reason they were is because rules changed with how you deal with ejidos. They didn't have the same written agreement that you would require today. The community was struggling with some of the people in the community. But the biggest complication was there was an agricultural cabal called El Barzón that represented the interests of farmers. And they were generally anti-mining and mineral exploration because of the competition over water and the wage inflation that mineral exploration causes in communities. As a consequence, not as a consequence, but the president of that Barzón and his wife were assassinated. And that was blamed on MAG. And look, I mean, I've been in this business 35 years. Mineral explorers don't shoot people. The other discussions in the community were that there was relations with cartels or less desirable people, and that might have led to the demise of these people. But nothing was done about it. Nobody followed up. No law enforcement got involved. It was just left with making MAG the convenient place to hang the blame. As a result, the local ejido, which is the communal group that owns the surface access rights over the deposit, banned mining for 100 years. And that was in 2012. So since then, no ejido group, there's been 4 new executives since that time, for each for a 3-year term. None of them have agreed to look at the mining ban or look at providing surface access rights to MAG on this deposit. In fact, in 2018, APGO spent a year or two trying to get involved, and see if they could get the position of the local community turned around. And I'm going to ramble on here, but look, that's what we do. Recall, I'm the founder of Prime Mining. I bought Los Reyes from Minera Alamos for $9 million back in 2019. I bought it because their community relations person said they weren't going to be able to fix the social license at Los Reyes. Well, it took us 9 months, but we fixed it. The same team that's operating here. In fact, about 20 of the employees in Prime come from Chihuahua State, from the city of Chihuahua, 2 hours from where Cinco de Mayo is. We know how to fix these problems, and it's not for guys in suits. It's for blue collars. We got to be in there. You got to break bread with them. You got to treat them like partners and give them what they want. And so that's where we are now. The size of the prize is huge. MAG lost 400 million in market cap when they lost access to Cinco de Mayo. I've had friends, some of my bigger shareholders in Prime, suggest that this is $1 billion deal if we get social license. And now that's a big number, but very few companies can offer you a new discovery. We know Pegaso was a new discovery and never got followed up on. We know that the 429 of the drill holes all had mineralization. We know it's big. We know there's another 500,000 ounces of gold equivalent in a surface deposit called Pozo Seco. Yes, a gold deposit, not even related to the CRD, the Jose Manto and the Bridge Zone that contains all the silver. But there's just so much juice here. There's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, Andrew, I guess nobody doubts the value of Cinco de Mayo as a massive project with multiple minerals, not just silver, zinc, lead, and copper, but also gold and even other critical minerals in there. There's a lot of room for upside on the exploration. The Pegaso Zone discovery was also exciting at the time and still can be exciting. But the social license issue is, the wet blanket holding over everything. I know you can't say a lot, but what can you tell people listening in as far as the timeline, the process? What would it look like to start getting social license? Is this months, years, decades? Could you put a little color around that?
Absolutely, and thanks for asking. So we started negotiating with MAG to get this asset early summer of 2024. At the same time we started negotiating with MAG, I sent my country manager and our operational team into Benito Juarez to start to understand the community and to understand the problems and the issues. That continued while we were negotiating with MAG. On September 26th, we signed the deal with MAG and announced it to the public market. We knew at that point in time that the current APGO executive was not going to entertain reversing the 100-year ban or giving us surface access rights, or for that matter, even giving us an opportunity to present what we want to do for the community, not even present it to the community. So we had to wait for the first election of a new executive. That election was December 13th. And at that election, about 330 members of a 406 population voted. 210 voted in favor of a new executive. I'll get to them in a minute. A new executive. 110 voted against, and the remainder didn't vote. When you win an election to be the next APGO executive for 3 years in Mexico, it has to get certified by the federal government. That takes 45 to 60 days. On February the 3rd, the new executive was sworn into office. So now they can conduct business. That was last week. We put out news today on that, and I made a comment in there that they are pro-development. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I can tell you now that for the first time in 13 years, there is a pro-mineral exploration and mining development executive over top of Cinco de Mayo, number one. Number two, 3 weeks ago, our geology team and our engineering firm, SLR, were on site to review all the old drill collars and get the site visit done for the 43101 report, which we're going to release shortly. That's the first time in a dozen years that's happened. So it's all heading in the right direction. Now we've got to be a bit careful here because we all know Cinco's worth something. We still have a proposal to make to the community, and we don't want to compete against ourselves by telling them how important this deal is to us. So we got to be a bit careful there. But the community's changed. The pecan orchards are dried right out. The habanero fields are not producing. 2 assembly plants that, for example, that make washers and dryers for Whirlpool have closed down. The local or the surface reservoirs have dried up, so the fishermen don't have work. Last year, they lost water for 3 days in the summer because the electric company shut off the electricity to the community because they can't pay the electric bill. Now, that's a problem all across Mexico, but these guys are in trouble. Cinco's their solution. All you got to do is look through northern Mexico and you'll see that where the communities where mines exist or where there's mineral exploration do far better than where there isn't. And so we're looking forward to making that presentation to the ejido. It's the first time that in 12 years that somebody's going to get invited to do that. And I truly believe that the community is going to like our proposal, much like happened at Prime, and they're going to agree to turn around the mining ban and give us access. And then we get to go to work.
That's when we'll be following up with you too, Andy. But just one more point, I guess, with the agreement with Mag Silver, what kind of time constraint are you under here? What's the time frame that you need to get some deal done?
So the fuse burns at both ends and things get stale and old. But here, our deal with Mag is we have a 5-year option. All we have to pay up front is the annual taxes on the property, which is about $600,000 a year. So we pay that, and the 5-year option is in good standing. Within those 5 years, we have to drill 20,000 meters and publicly announce it. And at that point, we issue Mag a 19.9% stake in Apollo. So I've got years to get the drilling done. We drill 40 to 60,000 meters annually at Los Reyes every year. So I know that I can get 20,000 meters drilled in 6 months, and I know it's going to cost me somewhere between $5 and $10 million to do all that drilling, and the money's in the bank for most of that. So I got time on my side. I got treasury on my side. But as I said, the fuse burns at both ends. I want to get it done sooner than later. So I think that we're going to get a chance to be in front of the ejido within the next 60 days. They're going to have a vote. We win the vote. We could be back. We could be there drilling this fall. The current ejido government has 3 years, but it's not going to take that long. This is going to go to a corporate vote or a community vote, and you're going to get your answer fairly quickly. And the last thing I'll say is this. You want to look at the value proposition. You got a $60 million market cap or thereabouts. We got 13 million cash in the treasury. So I'm going to say the enterprise value of this is $50 million. And for that 50 million, you've got 110 million measured and indicated ounces in California, another 50 plus million ounces inferred, a gold resource of another 70,000 ounces inferred. And that and we put 15 million into that ground. All your value is underwritten by what's in California. And you get this massive upside asymmetrically. It's asymmetric risk. You get it for nothing. So that's the value proposition here. That's why I own 25 million shares of the company. Guys like Jupiter own 9%. Eric Sprott owns 5%. Commodity Capital 5%. Primevest 4%. great list of shareholders.
All right, Andy, thank you very much for this company introduction. Look, I see some near-term catalysts here as long as everything moves along with Cinco de Mayo and the Calico Project. Well, you're adding in a whole different mineral and we'll see some economics. So everyone, if you want to find out more about Apollo Silver, click the link in the show notes. Go through the company's presentation and feel free to send us any questions you have for Andy, and we'll get him to address those on future segments. Andy, again, really appreciate your time and thank you for this introduction.
Thank you so much, Corey. Really appreciate the opportunity.